Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Donation Discussions. I'm your host, Rebekah Stolle, and today we're sitting down with Dr. Hanish. He's a local transplant surgeon here at MUSC, and we have an incredible conversation surrounding what hope looks like for both transplant recipients and donor families in the transplant community. We talk about the future and what technological advancements will look like for the donation community moving forward. It's a great conversation. I can't wait for you to get to hear it, so let's get into it. Hi, Dr. Hanish. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
We're glad to have you. I'd love to hear about your medical journey. Could you share a little bit with us about where you've been, what brought you to MUSC, and how you got here?
Sure. So I think I always knew, at least what my parents tell me, I always knew I was going to be a surgeon, and was fortunate enough to go to Duke University for a residency. My initial plan was to be a heart surgeon. Unfortunately, while I was in training and in the lab, new technologies came out that what we thought was going to end the role of cardiac surgery in future care. And I had come out of the lab in 2003 and got exposed to liver transplantation, really loved taking care of sick people, and sort of my pathway changed. So, and at that point, I went to the University of Wisconsin for a couple years for advanced training, and then was hired on to be a transplant surgeon at Emory starting in 2009, and have progressed from Emory to the University of Maryland, University of Texas, Southwestern, and then along the way building large volume liver programs, and then was recruited here last November to run transplant for MUSC, and I started June 10th of 2024 in that new adventure.
What does it look like for you as you see the need for organ donation and transplantation in South Carolina, particularly in liver? Is that your specialty? What has it been like being on the front line and seeing just the really immense need for liver transplant here?
So even though the state is only 5 million people, the number of patients on our waiting list likely eclipses even larger states.
Wow.
And the need for organ supply for our population exceeds larger states. Even in a state of 5 million, as I said, our kidney volumes are some of the top 10 in the United States. Our liver volumes are in the top 30 of the United States, which really defines the need amongst the population of South Carolina. So when I was looking at this job, what I identified was there was an unmet need, that there were patients being underserved or not served, either not getting on the list or organs not being accessed. So that's really been the best part of the last year, is the continued growth of the kidney transplant program at MUSC, the revamping and growth of the liver transplant program, because as you know, every patient that gets transplanted is a patient story. And it's also donor families who wanted to make that gift can now accomplish that. So that's been the best part of the last year.
What kind of trends have you seen in the transplant community? Healthcare trends, or just as we talk about that need, maybe that you really want to advocate for, or lifestyle changes, or how do we help shrink that wait list?
Well, I think it depends on, so each organ is different, right? So I think in the kidney world, the key is referral, right? We need dialysis units, kidney doctors, primary care doctors to refer patients who have end organ disease, and let the transplant group make the decision on someone's candidacy, because life on dialysis is not really a life, right? You're going to a center 3 days a week, you can't do things that you used to do, and getting a kidney transplant can take you back to where you were when you were healthy. So I think that's one key. On the liver side, I think what has changed is, first, hepatitis C is rarely transplanted anymore. So medication changes and inventions and discoveries have really changed the landscape. Fatty liver disease continues to be a problem. So of course, healthy lifestyles, good sugar control, best diet management, whether or not the new medicines in the market can help fatty liver disease, we'll just have to see. In coming out of COVID, also the rise of alcohol use and alcoholic liver disease. The world has become much more liberal on who we transplant with that problem, and we are one of those centers that are relatively liberal on that. But again, if patients come into the hospital with sick livers, they should be referred to a transplant center and at least be given the opportunity. So that's on the registration side. On the donor side, I think the key, and Sharing Hope has been an excellent partner in going after donations and gifts that 5 to 10 years ago we would never have looked at, and especially in liver transplant. And it is only because of the rise of technology that has become available, mainly liver pumps.
Yeah.
So the FDA approval of the liver pumps in 2021, 2022 opened up a whole new arena of livers and access for patients that was never available. And hopefully, you know, the number of patients we transplant this year will be more than last year. But I think those are the big changes. So increased access for patients getting livers and kidneys also that they never would have gotten. And then, you know, we want to encourage patients with end organ disease to at least be evaluated and get plugged into a transplant center, even if they're not put on the list.
So given that you have a front row seat to getting to make those calls and tell someone that their time on that wait list has ended, I'm curious if there's a story you could share what it's like to deliver that life-saving news to someone.
Each patient, of course, reacts differently.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the biggest thing that we see is hope, right? So whether or not it's the person who has to go to dialysis, who doesn't have to go to dialysis anymore, or the person who can now travel to visit family, or doesn't have to take 10 medicines so they think clearly from liver disease, or has cancer and their only option was a liver transplant. I think at the end of the day, you know, we get to give people hope. And what I usually tell people is we're sort of, you know, restarting the clock, right? Their life was this before, now they get a new lease.
One thing I'd love to talk about, I think people have a lot, of course, many misconceptions. There's a lot of myths surrounding organ donation. Could you shed some light onto what that process actually looks like from the moment you have a viable organ for transplant and you have a recipient who needs it? How fast does that process happen? I think that's all kind of mysterious to people. And could you explain how quickly things move and what it's like kind of behind the scenes?
I think the first misconception that people should know as they think about registering to be a donor is unless someone wishes to be a living donor, which we can take a kidney from someone who's alive and give it to a friend or family or an unrelated person, or part of someone's liver, so that would be a living donor. But in the deceased donor world, which makes up, you know, 80+% of the donors we do, first people should understand that the patients are deceased. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. So we don't take organs from people who are still living unless they consent to donate a kidney or part of a liver. So once someone has been deemed an organ donor, either through registration or their family consents, your team, you know, the organ procurement organization, make sure that the organs are of good quality and corresponds with the transplant centers. Organ allocation is very regimented. Their organs are allocated based on distance so that everyone has access based on the distance from where that donor may be. Testing usually occurs within 24, 48 hours to make sure the donors are healthy, they don't have viruses that we don't want to, you know, spread between people. And then hopefully the donation happens within, you know, 48 to 72 hours. At that point, the time where an organ sits from one person to the other is dependent on the organ. Kidneys can be out of the body a day or two. Livers, we prefer them to get in within 6 to 8 hours unless they're on a machine. But as I said earlier, the machines make it all better. Livers, we can keep on the machine for a day or more. Lungs can as well sit in a refrigerator for a day. Hearts have a shorter period of time. But transplants happen within hours to days of the donation.
It's so incredible to hear. I mean, it's life-changing, like you're saying, and it's giving that hope to someone who thought they wouldn't have it. So how does that change the conversations you have with people who are hesitant about being a registered donor? Maybe what would you say to someone right now who is hesitant about checking that box because they think, you know, doctors aren't going to save my life if I have the heart on my license, or those kind of fears that we hear a lot? Would love to get your take on that.
All medical interventions will be performed for someone to save their life, regardless of what their driver's license or registration status is. So having done this for 25 years in either being a transplant surgeon or a general surgeon, I have yet to see, hear, etc., of anyone withholding life-saving care because their driver's license said they were an organ donor. Second, I think that, you know, I think the greatest gift someone can give someone is hope. Donor families have told me is, A, it gives closure, whether or not it was a traumatic loss or an atraumatic loss. It gives closure to an event. And the thought that someone's loved one will in a way carry on and promote someone else's life so that they can then have, promote their life, et cetera, is a chain that is, never ending. I think, again, it gives purpose. And then clearly you have an impact on the greater world. And those are legacies. And I think there are very few things we do other than with our own families that really promote a legacy. And this really creates, in a way, a legacy.
What keeps you inspired and going in the work that you do? I mean, it's long hours, it's a ton of training that you went through, continue to go through. How do you stay resilient? How do you stay engaged in the work you do when a lot of times it is heavy, when you have people who are, it's life and death? How do you stay inspired in the work you do?
I love the patients. The best part is seeing them in clinic or at a post-transplant event and seeing how they're doing. I think that's what keeps us all going. We tell all the patients, there's always going to be a bump in the road. There is really no perfect, right? It depends on how big the bump is. But for the most part, we're going to get over the bump, right? So kidney outcomes are, 97, 98% survival at a year. Liver outcomes are similar. So greater than 95, 96% of the patients we transplant today are going to be alive in a year. So, but they're all going to have bumps in the road. So, holding people's hand through those bumps and then seeing, people, at the end of the process where they're back working or traveling or seeing their families. That's what sort of, I think, keeps us all going.
What excites you about the future of donation and transplantation surgery? What are things that are up and coming or new technology advancements that excite you for the future? As
we get better at managing donors and the ability to put organs on machines and rehabilitate them, whether it be kidneys or livers or hearts and lungs, I think there's going to be an increased access of organs that were not available yesterday for tomorrow. So that should also get more people transplanted. But I think that's the most exciting thing right now is technology. We do a very good job with managing the immunology, so people are not losing their organs for the most part from an immunologic or rejection. People get very worried about that word. But for the most part, those are easily managed problems. It's really supply. That's the biggest problem.
As we look to wrap up, I'd love to know, what message do you have for our local community, for South Carolina, in regards to transplantation, organ donation, either a message of hope you would like to say, or what's something that you hope people take away from your time here today with us?
For the people on the waiting list, I think people should know that, every day we're looking for organs to get people transplanted, and we'll push the envelope to get people transplanted, to get them off the list. I think for donors, I think the key is, first, donation is safe. Donation creates a legacy, as we said. I think you don't have to wait till you pass to donate. We know that you only need one kidney. You only need half your liver. If you have a drive inside of you to help your fellow man and give that gift, they can call the transplant center and say, I'm interested in donating a kidney or a part of my liver to either an adult or a child, especially for the kids. Organs are harder to come by just because of size, and they're just luckily less pediatric donors. We as a community can give if we're willing, and donation is safe, and we don't have to wait till our families make the decision for us. We can do it while we're still living.
Absolutely. What an encouraging message. Thank you. Well,
My pleasure.
You, Dr. Hanish, for your time. Thanks for joining us today. We really enjoyed having you.
Thank you for having me.